Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk. Today was Brian Fisher is my name. The program is Focal Point. The network is AFR Talk. This morning was the National Prayer Breakfast in Washington, D.C. President Obama attended, and he spoke for about 18 minutes. And by the way, Time Magazine has Marco Rubio on the cover today and identifies him as the Republican savior. That's the term they use for him, as the savior of the Republican Party. And Marco Rubio, to his everlasting credit, tweeted out a response, and his response was, "There is only one savior, and it's not me." And then he put a hashtag in front of the name Jesus. So Rubio saying, look, if you're looking for a savior, I'm not the guy you ought to be looking to. There is one and only one savior. Now contrast this with the way that President Obama responded to having Newsweek put a halo over his head. He accepted that. He welcomed that. So President Obama, by his silence, was receiving this hero worship, this adulation, which verges on idolatry, and Marco Rubio flatly rejected it. And he directed the attention of the people to the one true Savior, who is Jesus Christ. Now, Barack Obama spoke at this prayer breakfast this morning, and I want to play his comments for you, and then we'll kind of comment on it. I'd love to know what you think about it, his reaction to his comments at the prayer breakfast. Here's President Obama at this morning's prayer breakfast.
In a democracy as big and as diverse as ours, we will encounter every opinion. And our task as citizens, whether we are leaders in government or business or spreading the word, is to spend our days with open hearts and open minds, to seek out the truth that exists in an opposing view, and to find the common ground that allows for us as a nation, as a people, to take real and meaningful action. And we have to do that humbly, for no one can know the full and encompassing mind of God, and we have to do it every day, not just at a prayer breakfast. I have to say, this is now our 5th prayer breakfast, and it is always just a wonderful event, but I do worry sometimes that as soon as we leave the prayer breakfast, everything we've been talking about the whole time at the prayer breakfast seems to be forgotten. On the same day of the prayer breakfast. I mean, you'd like to think that the shelf life wasn't so short. But I go back to the Oval Office and I start watching the cable news networks, and it's like we didn't pray.
So that's President Obama, and he went on to talk about the importance of humility. My hope is that humility, that carries over every day, every moment. Those of us with the most power and influence need to be the most humble. Now, a couple of reactions here. President Obama basically said at this prayer breakfast this morning, look, I pray every day for humility. And my response to that is, well, if President Obama is praying every day for humility, then either God is not answering or President Obama is not listening, because he is filled with arrogance. He is filled with pride. He is filled with hubris. And you say, well, Brian, how can you judge his heart? I'm not. I'm judging his actions, and I'm judging his words. God is very clear about the sanctity of human life. He says in Psalm 139 that baby in the womb is something that I am weaving together. I am knitting that baby together. I have plans and purposes for the life of that baby that are beyond your ability to number or count. And President Obama wants to destroy that baby. President Obama doesn't think it's a baby. He thinks it's protoplasm. He thinks it's a clump of cells. So President Obama has the effrontery, the arrogance, the conceit to believe that he knows better on the issue of abortion than God himself. Now take the issue of marriage. God very clearly has defined marriage as the union of one man and one woman. Does it on the second page of the Bible. For this reason, a man, that's one, shall leave his father and mother and shall cleave to his wife. That's one man, that's one woman, and the two shall become one flesh. That's the easiest verse, one of the easiest verses in the Bible to interpret. Marriage consists of one man and one woman. That's marriage. And so the scriptures are very clear. God is very clear. He has defined marriage as the union of one man and one woman. And what God has defined, man must not redefine. It is the height of arrogance. It is the height of conceit. It is the height of pride to believe that I know better than God about what marriage is. So when President Obama says that I pray every day for humility, I am exactly right when I say either God is not answering that prayer or President Obama is not listening, because he has the arrogance to believe that he knows better than God when it comes to the issue of the sanctity of life and the sanctity of marriage. Now, on the subject of religious liberty, a couple of other thoughts while we're on this topic and in this segment. I just want to mention this one quote from Franklin D. Roosevelt with regard to Nazi Germany, because you have this myth out there, and it is a complete and total myth, that Hitler was some kind of right-wing Christian. He was nothing of the sort. He dabbled in occultism. He despised the church. He despised Christians. He had pastors like Dietrich Bonhoeffer shot or hung, forget which. And here is what FDR said in 1941. This is the President of the United States, Franklin D. Roosevelt. This is not David Barton looking back and making an assessment on history. This is FDR speaking in 1941. This is a week after we had declared war on both Japan and Germany. To Hitler, the church is a monstrosity to be destroyed by every means. That's Franklin D. Roosevelt saying about Hitler and his attitude toward Christianity, his attitude toward the Christian church. To Hitler, the church is a monstrosity to be destroyed by every means. So don't let anybody lie to you and tell you that Hitler was some kind of a Christian. He most definitely was not. Now, I mentioned this PBS series on the abolitionist movement, and it's interesting that I'm looking at an interview here with a documentarian. His name is Rob Rapley. This thing is, I think, this series has probably been completed in its airing by now. This interview I picked up back in January on Christianity Today. And here was the question that was asked to the documentarian by the interviewer. How would you sum up the role of faith in the work of American abolitionists? Now, American abolitionists, these were the ones that worked to bring the institution of slavery to an end. And again, the myth out there, the meme out there, is that evangelical Christians defended slavery. They were for slavery. They were pro-slavery. They believed the Bible sanctioned slavery. They were all about slavery. And that's a lie. It's just simply not true. Here is what this documentary, and again, this is PBS. This is not somebody on the staff of American Family Association or FRC. This is somebody on the staff of PBS. How would you sum up the role, or did the documentary for PBS, how would you sum up the role of faith in the work of American abolitionists? Quote, "It was a time in which religion played a central role in American life with the Second Great Awakening." Listen to this. Every one of the abolitionists was shaped very much by their faith. In fact, they would have defined themselves first by their faith before any other category. Now, again, I want to repeat this. Do not let them lie to you that somehow all evangelicals supported slavery. And I'm sure there were some in the South that did and used the Bible to do it. But the abolitionist movement was led, engineered, moved forward by evangelical Christians fired by their faith, just like you and me. There's a quote, every one of the abolitionists, every one, notice that. He says no exception. I'm doing this documentary for PBS. I did not come across one single solitary abolitionist who was not shaped very much by their faith. In fact, they would have defined themselves first by their faith before any other category. They would have said, look, I am a Christian before I am an abolitionist. I am a Christian before I am a Republican. And then here's a great word at the end of this interview. He says, what message do you hope viewers will walk away with after seeing your series? Listen to this. This is pretty great. I think it's really a testament to the power of the individual. And I just think about the circumstance that we're in today, where sometimes it can seem like we're in a minority. I think what happened with the Boy Scouts yesterday indicates, no, that's not true. That's the myth that the media is trying to foster, that we're some kind of beleaguered minority. The truth is the vast majority of the American people agree with us. They just need to be encouraged to act and speak and vote consistent with what they know in their heart of hearts to be true and not cave in to the politically correct pressure around them. He says, this is what he learned from studying the abolition movement. I think it's really a testament to the power of the individual. These characters were up against overwhelming odds. Remember, we had that thing yesterday where Jesus talked about if you have faith, you can move mountains. Nothing will be impossible for you. And he's saying, look, that's the spirit that fired those that wanted to bring the institution of slavery to an end. They were up against overwhelming odds, but it didn't slow them down. In hindsight, it seems like the end of slavery, we could substitute the end of abortion, was inevitable, but it was in fact about the most unlikely thing in the world. And a very small set of people set this vortex in motion, which eventually swept up the country and changed our history for the better. It really is so easy to lose sight of the fact that if you're dedicated enough and if you have a clear vision of something right and true, that you can, in fact, effect change. So he says, look, at the time, we look back on it and say, well, yes, slavery had to collapse. It had to come to an end and all. He said that at the time, that was the most unlikely outcome that you could possibly imagine. But there were a small set, a subset of people fired with moral and spiritual conviction that against insurmountable odds, overwhelming odds, moved mountains and brought the institution of slavery to an end. Ladies and gentlemen, we can do the same today with the issue of abortion and same-sex marriage. Focal Point AFR Talk, back in 2.